When the First World War finally came to an end in 1918, after 4 grinding years, people all around Wales began to propose the construction of over 2,500 local memorials to the 35,000 young men who had fallen. But here in Cardiff, it was decided by campaigners to propose an imposing national monument in the heart of the city.
Significant permanent memorials of grand vision were already being built elsewhere in Britain. The cenotaph in London, designed by Sir Edwin Lutyens in 1919, was a model for some, minimal and austere. But a contrasting approach was taken by the Royal Artillery Memorial, designed by Lionel Pearson. This used a frieze that depicted front-line battle scenes in horrifying detail.
So what would be the approach in Wales? It was to find a way of combining the austere beauty of the cenotaph with deeply felt sculpture and inscriptions.
In 1919, a public subscription was started by the Western Mail newspaper for the new memorial. And in 1924, it was won by the London-based architect Sir Ninian Comper. The son of a priest, Comper made his name restoring and building churches, and was one of the last architects to adhere to the Gothic revival. The Welsh War Memorial would be Comper's most important secular work, and he clearly felt it needed a different approach. Several locations were considered in and around the new civic centre of national institutions, Cathays Park, seen in these intriguing mock-ups. But the proximity to other buildings led to the memorial eventually finding a place in the quiet, reflective environment of Alexandra Gardens at the heart of the civic centre.
On the 12th of June 1928, the memorial was finally opened to the public in a solemn ceremony led by the Archbishop of Wales in the presence of the Prince of Wales and the former wartime Prime Minister, Welshman David Lloyd George.
The memorial was controversial for grasping a national role for Cardiff, which was chosen as the capital only 4 decades afterwards. And because what grieving families wanted most were local memorials they could visit. The choice of Comper as designer was also criticised by some in the architectural profession. And yet, when it was finished, the memorial was immediately accepted and adopted as the focal point for national remembrance. Comper created a pure and beautiful classical composition. Like all the buildings around it, it is built of white Portland stone. A central podium is enclosed by a circular colonnade of Corinthian columns open to the sky. 3 porticos emphasise steps leading down into the interior. At its heart, the central podium is surrounded by a fountain basin with 3 bronze statues of servicemen and a winged figure rising above them all. In putting emphasis on a central podium, this design draws on Comper's previous church designs and restorations, where he drew focus to a central altar with columns and canopies. Comper said that he had based the design on Roman ruins he had seen in Tunisia. The most likely model is the colonnade at the Roman theatre at Duga or Thuga, which has Corinthian columns and a similar entablature. Architecturally, the colonnade creates a quiet place for contemplation. The round colonnaded form was used in commemorative buildings in ancient Greece and Rome, including mausolea housing tombs, a fitting reference for the memorial. Instead of a tomb or shrine at the centre, attention is trained on the fountain and sculptures. Here we can see 3 life-size figures around the central drum, representing an airman, a soldier and a sailor in uniform, designed by Alfred Bertram Pegram, one of the exponents of the new sculpture. Characteristic of Pegram's concern for naturalism, all of them are modelled directly from life, after a Royal Navy sailor called Fred Baker from Brixton.
In the original design, the figures bowed their heads, but in the final version it was changed, and each of the figures held up high a laurel wreath with sashes as a symbol of eternal life.
Made after the same model as the figures below stands the dazzling winged Victory. Since ancient times, Victory was represented as a goddess, so it's unusual for such a figure to be male. While the figure represents Victory, its sword also evokes the Archangel Michael. He holds it by the blade as a symbol of the laying down of weapons, making the hilt a cross. Just as affecting are the inscriptions in Latin, English and Welsh. These unfold slowly as you move around them.
Comper originally intended that the inscription on the outside of the monument should be in English, but it was eventually decided that as a national monument, it should be in Welsh. It reads, I feibion Cymru a roddes ei bwyd dros ei gwlad, to the sons of Wales who gave their lives for their country in the war of 1914 to 1918.
Comper's own English inscription is around the interior. While local memorials could include tributes to individuals, individual names were not written on the memorial. There were just too many to include.
For me, the Welsh National War Memorial manages to remain free of drama and sentimentality, to be an expression of sorrow and gratitude of the people of Wales for the sacrifices made by so many.
War memorials are a powerful form of public art, each formed in the visual language of its time and tied to the place and people who wished for somewhere to come together in mourning. A century after its completion, this is still the national focus for commemoration of both the Great War and the Second World War. It serves as a monument in the true sense, reminding us of those who have gone before and standing tall at the heart of the nation.